have to say while we draw breath? Distress caused this untimely death.
I don't want to talk too much about the next part of my life, as I was on the run, was a deserter for a while, and there were those that helped me. And after that defeat in Holland, many other men deserted, and most of us were hunted down and brought back for regimental punishment. And that is what happened to me. So, June 1801 saw me in Egypt, serving in Captain Aylmer's company. We saw action at Alexandria and Aboukir Bay, but the French didn't resist for long. The biggest enemy was disease, and when they shipped us out to Malta, we were held in quarantine for weeks till we were pronounced fit. By then I was in Captain Engington's company. Peace was made with the French in the Treaty of Amiens, and the 2nd Battalion was disbanded. I could have stayed on with the 1st Battalion, but I'd had enough by then. And in September 1802, I left the army for good, and I come back to Derbyshire, and I took up work as a mason again.
It were a proper job, and I'm a skilled man. I built a house for myself and my parents, and that'll stand for hundreds of years, long after I'm gone. I never married, though I had my chances. A woman's breast was always too hard a pillow for me. My brother Edward was 12 years younger than me, and hadn't seen the world. He was best friend, half brother, half son to me.
In the army, we'd talk about how unfair the world was and why an Englishman should have fewer rights than a Yankee or a Frenchman. We had to make sure the officers didn't hear or they'd flog us. We often talked about what Tom Paine had written. Tom wrote for us in a language we could understand.
When it shall be said in any country in the world, my poor are happy, neither ignorance nor distress is to be found among them. My jails are empty of prisoners, my streets of beggars. The aged are not in want, the taxes are not oppressive. The rational world is my friend, because I am a friend of its happiness. When these things can be said, then may that country boast its constitution and its government.
And at a time when most people were poor and getting poorer, our Prince Regent and his cronies were spending thousands on their own pleasures. Aye, Tom spoke good sense.
We hold the moral obligation of providing for old age, helpless infancy, and poverty is far superior to that of supplying the invented wants of courtly extravagance.
Tom's books were banned and his publishers put in jail, and a soldier would be flogged for reading them. He fled to America, but his ideas spread through the ranks, and they stayed with us. Well, Pentridge village is just up the road from South Wingfield. There was a man lived there called Thomas Bacon. Old Tommy was quite a character. He'd educated himself and read hundreds of books. And he knew all about Tom Paine. In fact, he said he'd been to America to meet him, but I never thought that were true. And Tommy would talk to anyone who wouldn't listen about how we should rise up against the government, like they had in America and France. Called himself a radical, somebody who wanted to change the way things were, so that all men could vote and have the right to be educated and had a duty to help the old and poor, instead of watching them die in hardship. And I agreed with him. Tommy was a great traveller. He knew people all over England, as thought as he did. He went to meetings everywhere. He was quite a lad for a man of 60. He arranged for newspapers to be sent from London to be shared across the men of the district. There was a newspaper called the Political Register, which published radical news. It was written by a man called William Cobbett, a great reformer. But tuppence was, it was too much for one poor man, but If 20 of us would share, we could do it. And then there was a cut-down version called the tuppenny trash. You can guess how much that cost. Cobbett had the same way of words as Tom Paine did.
A full belly to the labourer was, in my opinion, the foundation of public morals and the only source of real public peace.
He hit the nail on the head when he said that many of the poor didn't even have children because they never afford to feed them.
To suppose such a thing possible as a society in which men who are able and willing to work cannot support their families and ought, with a great part of the women, to be compelled to lead a life of celibacy for fear of having children to be starved. To suppose such a thing possible is monstrous.
God save great Thomas Paine, his rights of man explain to every soul. He makes the blind to see what dupes and slaves they be, and he points out the liberty from pole to pole. Pull proud oppressors down, knock off each tyrant's crown and break his sword. Down aristocracy, set up democracy, and from hypocrisy save us, good Lord. Why should despotic pride usurp on every side? Let us be free and grant freedom's armed success, and all her efforts bless. Plant through the universe liberty's tree. Despots may howl and yell, although they're in league with hell, they'll not reign long. Satan may lead their van and do the worst he can, but Paine and his rights of man shall be my song. Some years back, the land had been enclosed and most families had grown a few vegetables or kept a cow or a pig on the commons. Well, we couldn't do that anymore. We used to catch fish and rabbits and shoot wild fowl, but that was forbidden now, and you could be transported for poaching. The Duke of Devonshire owned most of the land, and his keepers and bailiffs were fierce. We had a local landlord who lived at the Hall called Colonel Wingfield Halton. He was a hard one too. Well, during the war with the French, food was scarce enough, prices were high, and work was changing. Those who worked at the ironworks had got a steady job making what the army needed, but nobody else did. There were miners and masons and farmers, but many men worked as framework knitters. They rented the frames from wealthy merchants, and the men worked them in their own houses. They called them shiners because the breeches got shiny with sliding along the benches. The wives and children were helping the work, and we all got a good living. Mostly they made hose, so that's why they were called stockiners, of course, but they made other garments too. Not cheap, and always of the best quality. But that changed. Soon skilled men couldn't get any work because there were factories full of new frames which could be worked by women and children. And the goods they made were cheap, made from shoddy, which was wool that had been used before, and they fell to pieces quickly enough. People weren't paid in money, they were given lousy food from the owners' shops. And the scales were rigged and all. And they just let them build up debts until they were owned, just like slaves, body and soul. Ye kind-hearted souls, give an ear to my song, and at these verses I won't take long. The framework knit as a Sutton, how ill they are used, and by the bagmasters sorely abused. Derry down, 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 Derry down. They've baited our wages so low for our work that to gain our maintenance we slave like a Turk. And when we ask for our money comes paper and string, dear beef and bad mutton and other such things. Derry down, 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 Derry down. Bad weights and short measures are frequently used. Excessive extortion sorely abused. Insulted and lied to, we mention no name, but book up our spirits and beat down their frames. Derry down, 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 Derry down, down.